Hello and welcome to another GCSE revision video. In this video we're looking at the AQA 8300 series May 2017 past paper. This is the first paper in the higher tier. We pick it up in question 19, which says, here is some information about the marks of 60 students in a test. Okay, so there are 9 students that scored between 40 and 50, 16 students scored between 50 and 60, 20 students scored between 60 and 70, 8 students scored between 70 and 80, and 7 students scored between 80 and 90. On the grid, draw a cumulative frequency graph for 3 marks. Okay, so what we want to do is work out our cumulative frequency table. I'm just going to mark it CF. So we know that 9 students scored up to 50. So we put 9 here. And 16 students scored between 50 and 60, and 9 students scored between 40 and 50. So 9 plus 16, which is 25 students scored between 40 and 60. Because this is a cumulative frequency, we keep adding the new total to the new amount. So if 20 students scored between 60 and 70, then 20 plus 25 is 45 students scored below 70. Now if 8 students scored between 70 and 80 and 45 students scored below 70, then 45 plus 8 is 53. Just add 10 and take away 2. So 53 students scored below 80. And lastly, if 7 students scored between 80 and 90, then 53 plus 7 is 60 students scored below 90. And a quick reality check, we're told in the question, here is some information about the marks of 60 students in a test, and these numbers do indeed add up to 60, so we can be fairly confident that we've added our numbers up right. Okay, so it says on the grid, draw cumulative frequency graph. So for a CF graph, or cumulative frequency graph, what we want is to plot the points on the x-axis. In this case it's the mark. We want to plot on the highest possible boundary. So this is 50. You can score between 40 and 50, and 60 and 70 and 80 and 90. So the marks that we're plotting is at the very upper limit, because we're saying that 9 students scored below 50, 25 students scored below 60. So we're plotting our points at the upper boundary. I've already drawn it because I have difficulty drawing, so I've taken the liberty of doing the time-consuming stuff already. So at 50, our first coordinate is 9. So this will be our x plot, and this is our y. So at 50, we're going up to 9, and 9 is just one little square less than 10. And then for 60, we want to plot 25. So the 60 is here, so we're going up, and 25 is exactly halfway between 20 and 30. So plot the point here. For 70, we're plotting the point at 45. So we go read up for the 70, and we're plotting at 45, which is halfway between the 40 and the 50. And again for the 80 is going to be 53. So that puts it just 2 little squares down below 55. and then for 90 is the 60. So we read up the 90 and read across 60, and we pop our point here. Now, to draw a cumulative frequency graph, ideally it should be a nice smooth hand-drawn curve, and it should probably look sort of vaguely S-shaped, but in an exam don't waste time with that, especially if you're not a good artist. Just grab your ruler and join the dots. Whatever you do, do not do a single straight line from the start to the finish, or a single straight line like a line of best fit. This is not a scatter graph. You're not trying to draw a line of best fit. You don't want a single straight line. It's straight lines that join the dots. Okay, so now we have our cumulative frequency chart for 3 marks. It says use your graph to estimate the lowest mark of the top 20% of students. So what's the lowest possible mark for the top 20% of students? Okay, so the top student would be the 60, and they scored 90 marks. Now, the top 20%, so we're looking for the what's 20% of 60 that we're going to take away from 60. Well, that's the same as just calculating 80% of 60. So that's just 60 times 80%, or 60 times 0.8. Alternatively, we could have done 60 minus, do it in the right order, 60 minus 0.2, which is 20%, times 60. Both of that's going to come out the same, so. So, 60 times 0.8, well, if I divide the 60 by 10 and then multiply the 0.8 by 10, I'm dividing by 10 and multiplying by 10, so I'm not actually changing the outcome. Then I've just got 6 times 8, and 6 times 8 is just 48, which we know from our times tables. Actually, if you weren't sure about that, you could have said 6 times 4 is 24, and 24 plus 24 is 48. Or 6 times 2 is 12, and 12 plus 12 is 24, which is 6 times 4, and then 24 plus 24 is 48, which is 6 times 8. But hopefully you don't need to do that because you memorised your times tables. In this case, we've got 60 minus 0.2 times 60. Well, 0.2 times 60, by the same reasoning as we got the 60 times 0.8, would just be 12. So this is equal to 60 minus 12. Well, 60 minus 10 is 50, and 50 minus 2 is 48. So either way, we're going to get 48. But that's not the answer we're looking for. This is what we're reading off the graph. So the lowest mark of the top 20. The top 20 is everybody from 48 up to 60. So the 48th student, if I try to read off this graph. So this is 40. So 50 minus 2 little squares would be 48. So that would be here. If I can try and draw a straight line. Okay, let's just zoom in a little bit. Let me see more clearly. Yep, that is at 48. So where it touches my curve, I can read down. Okay, so this mark here that's halfway between 70 and 80 will be 75, and this is one little square below 75, so this is 74. So this is the mark of the 48th percentile. So the 48th percentile, sorry, I did not say 48th percentile, the 48th student, if you will, which is the 80th percentile, will be 74. So the mark we're looking for is 74. Okay, I hope you found that helpful. If you're taking your GCSEs this year, I'd like to wish you every success with your revision and every success with your exams, and I look forward to seeing you in another video.